In a collapsing world where failed utopias litter the earth like broken promises, one truth becomes unavoidable. The human mind must evolve faster than the ruins rising around it. This audiobook declares that survival is no longer physical, it is neurological. It is cognitive reconstruction. It is the rebuilding of the brain using resilience algorithms engineered inside the laboratories of civilizations that once believed they could perfect humanity. What the old world could not sustain, the listener must now internalize. And in this exact moment, as the systems decay and the future compresses, this audiobook delivers the blueprint, clear, scientific, and absolute, for constructing a mind capable of thriving in a dystopian future Earth.
Chapter 1.
Chapter 1. Activate the Survival Cortex. The old cities were already dying when the first signals began. Not the sudden violent death of explosions or invasions, but the quiet internal decay of systems built on certainty. Towers still stood, but their foundations hummed with instability. Energy conduits flickered, transit lines hesitated, time itself stuttered in the rusted steel skeletons of the megastructures. And across the fractured landscape, one truth began to emerge, subtle at first, then undeniable. Those who survived the fall were not the strongest, they were the ones whose minds adapted first. The researchers of the vanished Utopias had a name for it: the Survival Cortex, a dormant cluster of neural pathways dormant in the modern human brain, built for ancient danger but capable of future adaptability. They discovered it too late. Their perfect societies cracked before they could teach their citizens how to switch it on. Now, in the present collapse, the scattered survivors whispered the mantra the utopians left behind: when the world breaks, the brain upgrades. The narrator's voice follows a lone figure, Aren, one of the few who sensed the breakdown early. He walked through the remnants of New Helios, a cybernetic megacity once praised as the crown jewel of human engineering. But tonight, the city was different. The neon skyline dimmed in slow, unnatural pulses, as if the lights themselves struggled to remember how to glow. The air carried a metallic scent, sharp and electric, like wires burning beneath polished steel. Aren paused beneath an enormous holographic banner, the last functioning projection in Sector 4. It flickered, glitched, and displayed the same cryptic message it had for weeks: adaptation is mandatory. He didn't know who placed it there, maybe a rogue AI, maybe an old scientist sending a warning from a forgotten lab. Or maybe, he thought, the city itself was trying to speak. The survival cortex activated differently for every person. For some, it emerged in moments of absolute fear. For others, during clarity, when the collapse around them aligned into a recognizable pattern. For Aren, it began with a sound, a low, steady hum. It vibrated beneath the pavement, resonated through the alloy towers, and settled inside his chest. The same hum recorded in the archives of lost utopias mere hours before their downfall, a resonance that peeled away the comfortable illusions of civilization. Aren exhaled, slow, controlled. He remembered what the old text said: the hum is not danger, the hum is a signal. Another mantra from the ancient labs of Eden 9 repeated itself in his mind: when the world breaks, The brain upgrades. He closed his eyes, let the sound expand, let the data threads merge with his senses. The survival cortex was not a panic switch, it was an awakening, a reconfiguration of priorities, an invitation. Across New Helios, others were feeling it too. In the abandoned transit tunnels, a mechanic named Lyra felt time dilate for a moment, just enough to let her dodge a collapsing support beam she never saw falling. In the shattered markets of Sector 12, a trader named Solren sensed a pattern in the movement of the crowd, predicting the direction of an oncoming riot seconds before it erupted. In the upper districts, a cluster of children began recognizing a faint symbol repeating in the sky's glitching skyline, a symbol researchers had seen moments before Utopia broke. The world was collapsing, but something deeper was rising. The survival cortex was no myth. In failed utopias such as Astralis Prime and Eden 9, the few who activated it early outlived entire districts that waited for rescue, systems, or leadership. Those who adapted internally survived externally. Those who waited perished. Aren opened his eyes, and, for the first time, he saw the city's decay not as chaos, but as data. The flickering lights mapped pathways. The broken conduits pulsed in rhythmic sequences. The hum beneath the streets carried encoded warnings. His brain, until now constrained by the habits of the old Earth operating system, began to restructure itself around one directive. Adaptation is survival. Waiting is extinction. He stepped forward as the hum deepened, vibrating like a heartbeat beneath the world. Something was calling him deeper into the city. A signal, a pattern, a beginning. And though he didn't know it yet, activating the survival cortex was only the first step. The real test waited beneath New Helios, in the dark, in the ruins, in the place where the utopia first broke. When the world breaks, the brain upgrades. The mantra repeated. This time, it felt like a command.
Chapter 2. Chapter 2. Delete the old Earth operating system. The hum beneath New Helios followed Aren long after he left Sector 4. It clung to the metal walkways like an echo of something ancient, older than the megacity, older than the Utopias, older even than recorded civilization. It pulsed in intervals, almost like a coded message he could not yet decipher. But one thing was certain. The activation of the survival cortex had opened something in him. It had not only sharpened his senses, it had awakened a memory of patterns he didn't know he held. As Aren trekked into the lower strata, the city shifted. The neon haze thinned, the air turned colder, heavier, tinged with burnt ozone. Shadows crawled across the walls like remnants of forgotten machinery. Here, the old Earth operating system still lingered, an inherited mental architecture passed down through generations, unseen and unquestioned. It had guided humanity in times of stability. Now it was a liability. Aren felt the weight of it inside his mind, the old loops, the familiar pathways, the instincts that told him to stay comfortable, stay passive, stay dependent on collapsing systems. This, he realized, was the true decay that destroyed the Utopias long before their towers fell. The old researchers warned them. Their journals repeated a single directive, etched in sterile laboratory handwriting. If the brain keeps the past, the future deletes you. He whispered it now, letting the mantra echo inside his skull. It was both instruction and warning. He needed to purge the old code. A sudden vibration shuddered through the floor. Aren paused, crouched low, and touched the metallic ground. A faint tremor pulsed through the steel. Not mechanical, not environmental, neural, as if the entire city was a half-living organism trying to reboot. He followed the tremor. It led him deeper into the subterranean levels until the maze of corridors opened into a cavernous expanse, the archive chamber of Sector Null, long abandoned since the collapse. The room was bathed in a flickering blue glow. Holographic screens hovered in midair, frozen in glitch loops. Lines of outdated code streamed in vertical spirals, repeating broken commands. Reassure, repeat, obey. Reassure, repeat, obey. The old Earth operating system, humanity's most dangerous inheritance. Aren stepped inside, feeling its influence tug at his thoughts, urging him to fall back into predictable behavior. He could almost hear the old voice inside every pre-collapse citizen's mind. Don't think too far ahead. Don't question the pattern. Stay within the familiar loop, the very loops that doomed the Utopias. Nearby, a damaged holographic console flickered to life, replaying archived footage from the Helios 5 orbital colony, one of the first to purge the old systems during the cosmic storms. Scientists in silver exosuits shouted over alarms as radiation tore through the colony's shields. "Purge the behavioral software," one of them yelled. "If they keep the old patterns, they won't adapt to the time dilation." Screams echoed, voices warped, but then clarity. A single surviving research officer looked into the camera, her eyes steady despite the chaos. "Deleting the old operating system saved the last 42 of us. The storm rewrote physics. We rewrote the mind." The feed crackled out. Aren took a slow breath. His chest tightened as the city's hum deepened, resonating in a frequency that seemed to aim directly at his memories. His mind drifted, unreachable moments from his childhood flashing before him. The comforting routines, the predictable comfort circuits society built into everyone at birth. But comfort was the virus. Adaptation was the cure. If the brain keeps the past, the future deletes you, Aren whispered. It was both instruction and warning. He needed to purge the old code. A sudden vibration hit harder this time. The holographic screens shattered like glass, scattering fragments of drifting light. The air crackled. The chamber's power surged in frantic pulses. Something was coming online. A buried mechanism deep beneath the archive began to awaken, emitting a rising metallic whine. The floor quivered. Sparks shot from the walls in erratic arcs of light. The city was reacting to him. Or perhaps reacting to the deletion process he had begun. He turned toward the source of the noise, a circular panel in the center of the chamber. It glowed with a strange sigil, not alien, not human, but transitional, a bridge between old and new. He had seen fragments of the sigil etched in the glitching skyline earlier, He saw it in the dreams that haunted him since the collapse. "What are you?" he murmured. The sigil pulsed once, and the chamber lights went black. Silence, total, absolute. Then a distorted voice, low and mechanical, whispered through the room. "Delete the past, or be deleted." And the panel began to open. Aren stepped back, heart hammering, and from below, something began to rise.
Chapter 3.
Chapter 3. Install resilience algorithms from failed utopias. The chamber beneath New Helios rumbled as the circular panel opened, releasing a gust of air so cold it felt like it came from another world or another timeline. Aren shielded his eyes as pale blue light spilled upward, illuminating the forgotten depths. A thin fog seeped out, curling around his legs, carrying with it the faint scent of old biomechanical labs and memories that weren't entirely his. He felt the mental shift begin before he knew what was happening. Not fear, not confusion, something deeper. An update. The voice that had whispered in the darkness did not speak again, but the message lingered like a carved engraving in his mind. Delete the past, or be deleted. Now, something new was rising to take the place of what he had erased. From beneath the panel emerged a fractured data core, its crystalline surface etched with thousands of microscopic patterns. They shimmered like constellations, shifting in response to his presence. Some patterns he recognized instinctively, though he had never seen them. Arcs, spirals, repeating clusters. They were the same symbols he had glimpsed in the glitching skyline of Sector 12, and they carried the unmistakable watermark of the ancient Utopias. Aren stepped toward it slowly, sensing that what he was seeing was not just technology, it was a repository of failures. And inside those failures, the hidden instructions for survival. The scientists of Eden 9 called them resilience algorithms, fragments of cognitive code extracted during the final days of their bioengineered civilization. Eden 9 had been designed as a flawless society, self-healing ecosystems, emotion-calibrated governance, perfectly synchronized citizens. But perfection had been its downfall. The archival reports stated it clearly. Optimism outpaced realism. Stability outpaced adaptability. When the unexpected arrived, the utopia died instantly, like glass under pressure. Aren's hand hovered over the crystalline core as the system scanned his presence. Lines of faint blue energy rippled across the surface, reacting to his frequency. A soft vibration traveled up his fingertips. A memory, no, an echo, flooded into him. He saw Eden 9 in its final hour, bioluminescent trees flickering like dying stars, atmospheric domes cracking as seismic waves tore across its foundations. He saw citizens frozen in confusion, unable to adapt because their minds had been trained only for equilibrium. And amidst the chaos, he saw a group of rogue scientists uploading the final versions of the resilience algorithms into a hidden relay station, hoping someone, someday, would activate them. "Their failure becomes your firmware," Aren whispered. The mantra felt like it belonged to him now. The core pulsed. Aren heard something, a spiss of static. Then faint voices layered upon one another. Learn from what collapsed. Extract code from ruin. Resilience is born where perfection breaks. The chamber darkened for a moment as the walls absorbed new power. Glowing circuits ignited, running up the sides like veins. Aren watched as holographic projections flickered to life. Images from other failed utopias. Australis Prime, where solar storms shattered the illusion of infinite energy. The Harmony Shell, whose citizens died when their emotional synchrony network overloaded. Utopia Red, a floating city lost to cognitive complacency and delayed decision-making. Each failure revealed a principle. Each collapse revealed an algorithm. And now, the core wanted to install them. Aren took a step backward, breath trembling. He felt an internal pull, like gravity inside his mind, drawing him toward the patterns. He remembered the researcher's warning. Resilience algorithms overwrite the old identity structures. Install at your own risk. Too late for caution. The old code was already gone. Something new had to take its place. The core projected a swirling lattice of symbols, thousands of them, merging into a spiral that pointed directly at him. He inhaled. The city hummed, and then the installation began. His vision dissolved into data. His heartbeat synced with the light pulses from the core. He felt neural pathways opening, folding, rewiring. Memories restructured themselves, not erased, but reorganized, categorized by adaptability. He saw how Eden 9 trained its citizens in micro-adversity simulations. He saw how Australis Prime taught decision-making under distorted timelines. He saw how Utopia Red practiced emotional detachment from collapsing environments. Each new pattern settled into place within his mind. Not at once, layer by layer, algorithm by algorithm, stitching resilience into the architecture of his consciousness. His breath stabilized. His mind quieted. The mantra repeated, not spoken, but embedded. Their failure becomes your firmware. The light faded. The core dimmed. Aren sank in his knees, sweat beading across his forehead. His senses sharpened again, but differently this time. He could feel the room not as a space, but as a network of probabilities. He could sense the city above him as a fractal of potential collapse points. He had changed. But before he could process the transformation, the chamber's alarms flickered to life. A tremor shook the ground. The sigil on the panel glowed violently. And from deep within the city's understructure, a warning rippled upward. Something had detected the installation. Something that did not want resilience spreading. Aren looked toward the dark corridor as a new hum, low, predatory, began to rise.
Chapter 4.
Chapter 4. Harden your perception against future shock. The hum in the corridor deepened, resonating like a warning pulse from the bones of the city itself. Aren steadied himself as the ground trembled beneath his feet, the last glimmers of the resilience algorithms still settling into his neural pathways. The air felt heavier now, denser, almost elastic. As he stepped forward, the world around him seemed to stretch, then compress, as if time were struggling to hold a consistent rhythm. Future shock. He recognized the phenomenon from the Utopian archives. Many post-cyberpunk civilizations had reached this same breaking point, where change accelerated faster than consciousness could process, where perception itself fractured under the weight of too much, too fast. Entire sectors fell not because of violence, but because the citizens could no longer interpret the world in front of them. Aren swallowed hard. He could feel the edges of that fracture forming in his mind. A flicker at the corner of his vision, another tremor through the walls, a whisper of static, soft, almost apologetic. This is how identities collapse, he remembered reading in Eden 9's final report. When perception breaks, identity breaks, and when identity breaks, survival ends. He repeated the mantra under his breath, grounding himself. If perception breaks, identity breaks. If identity breaks, survival ends. The corridor ahead illuminated in short, panicked bursts of red and white. Shadows jumped across the metallic walls like living things. Aren moved carefully, adjusting to the changing light rhythms, stabilizing his breathing as the resilience algorithms guided his reactions. He could feel the algorithms attempting to anchor him, but perception anchoring was something he would have to train consciously, just like the researchers in the time-dilated labs had done. Their recordings surfaced in his mind. Scientists working in chambers where time ran at uneven speeds, where awareness expanded and contracted like lungs. To endure the distortions, they designed exercises to fortify perception, grounding neural circuits against the chaos of accelerated futures. Aren closed his eyes briefly, pulling from the memories. Exercise 1. Identify the fixed points in the chaos. He listened. The hum in the corridor, his breathing, the steady thrum of his heartbeat. Even in a collapsing timeline, certain rhythms persisted. He locked onto them. Exercise 2. Select one sensory stream. Ignore the rest. A burst of static cracked overhead. The lights flickered. Somewhere distant machinery screamed as metal twisted under stress. But Aren focused only on touch, the cold surface of the wall beneath his palm. He slid his hand along the metal, letting texture guide him, not sight. Exercise 3. Remember, distortions lie, anchors don't. He repeated the mantra again. If perception breaks, identity breaks. A surge of light exploded behind him, white-hot and blinding. Aren spun around, shielded his eyes, heart pounding. But when the light faded, nothing was there. Not a scorch mark, not a device, not even a flickering wire. A phantom event. A temporal hallucination. Future shock had begun its assault. Aren moved faster now, training his mind with each step, narrowing focus, widening it, regulating the pace of attention. The resilience algorithms helped him parse the distortions, but the sheer volume of anomalies pressed hard against his mental limits. Then, the corridor opened into a wider chamber. At its center stood an ancient device, circular, metallic, covered in shifting sigils. He had seen something like it in the Eden 9 archives, a perception anchor, built to stabilize awareness during temporal disruptions. This one, however, was active. Its core rotated slowly, emitting a low harmonic frequency that vibrated through the room. Aren approached cautiously, drawn by instinct and necessity. The sigils across the device pulsed, slow at first, then faster, syncing with his heartbeat. His vision blurred again, the chamber warped, stretching into impossible angles. The floor seemed to tilt, the air to thicken. Aren staggered, catching himself on the railing. The device whispered to him, not in words, but in rhythmic pulses. Anchor or break. Anchor or break. He reached out. The moment his fingers brushed the device, a surge of energy burst outward, flooding the chamber with electric blue light. Aren gasped as the pulse shot through him, bypassing muscle, rushing straight into his cortical pathways. Time around him slowed. No, not slowed, expanded. He saw everything at once, every angle of the room, every pulse of electricity, every trembling atom of air. His perception stretched to the breaking point, his mind fractured, then reformed around a single truth. He could navigate the future if he learned to hold reality steady, even when reality refused to hold itself. The device released him. The chamber steadied. His breath came in ragged heaves. But something had changed. He hadn't broken. He had anchored. Aren stood tall, perception sharpened, identity reinforced. And as the chamber's exit doors groaned open, he felt a new certainty rising inside him. Beyond this room waited The next threat, the one that hunted anyone who dared to adapt too quickly. A shadow moved in the doorway. Aren stepped backward. Something stepped forward.
Chapter 5.
Chapter 5. Break the loop of dystopian learned helplessness. The figure that stepped through the doorway moved with slow, deliberate precision, too smooth to be entirely human, too grounded to be fully machine. Aren instinctually braced, perception still sharpened from the anchoring device. The chamber lights flickered across the stranger's form, revealing a body threaded with pale circuitry and metallic seams that glowed faintly like veins pulsing with polluted starlight. For a moment, neither spoke. Then the stranger whispered, a voice soft, tired, layered with static. "You broke the first loop." Aren stiffened. What loop? The one every collapsing society births, the loop that kills faster than famine or fear, the loop that tells you, stay still, surrender, accept the decay. The stranger's eyes, if they could be called eyes, dimmed and brightened like two synchronized processors remembering a long-forgotten function. Aren knew the term from the archives, dystopian learned helplessness, the psychological virus that infected entire civilizations. The stranger's voice wavered, a distorted echo trembling beneath each word. It starts small, a delay in the power grid, a glitch in the food rations, a problem no one knows how to solve. People wait, then wait longer, and soon waiting becomes their identity. Aren felt a chill crawl up his spine. He had seen it in New Helios, the empty stairs, the citizens clinging to routines even as the city collapsed around them. The stranger continued, soon they are no longer trapped by the world, they are trapped by themselves. A moment of silence settled, thick and heavy. Aren stepped closer. If the loop is that strong, how did you escape it? The stranger looked past him, as though seeing a memory in the air. We didn't, not at first. He pointed to the faint circuitry across his chest. I was part of the neuro-architectural stations, orbiting habitats built above dead planets. Our task wasn't to build homes, it was to build minds, to design countermeasures for the loops forming in dying civilizations. The chamber hummed softly. Dust drifted like suspended time. Our simulations showed it again and again. Give humanity too much collapse, and they will not adapt. They will repeat until their identity dissolves. Aren repeated the mantra he had learned from the orbital archives. You are not trapped in the loop. You are rewriting it. The stranger nodded slowly. Exactly. You must rewrite before the loop rewrites you. A metallic groan echoed through the chamber walls, a reminder that collapse pressed closer by the minute. Aren swallowed. How do I break it? The stranger extended a hand. Aren hesitated, then took it. Instantly, images shot through his mind, rapid and disjointed. A station orbiting a rust-colored corpse of a planet, its surface cracked like glass. Scientists walking through rotating gravity corridors, training themselves to act despite environmental collapse. A room filled with pulsing fractal symbols, each representing a behavioral pattern that had trapped societies in helplessness. a mantra repeating over the loudspeakers, soft but relentless. Interrupt the loop, redirect the loop, rebuild the loop. Aren gasped as the vision subsided. The stranger withdrew his hand. In the stations, we learned that the loop is built on one thing: predictability, repetition that feels safe, even when it kills. Aren's heartbeat quickened. He knew that feeling too well, the comfort of old routines, even as the world shattered around him. So you break the loop by violating predictability. Aren frowned. Meaning? Meaning every time your mind tries to freeze, you move. Every time fear repeats a familiar pattern, you redirect. Every time the world collapses in the same rhythm, you shift your cadence. Aren repeated quietly, "You are not trapped in the loop. You are rewriting it." The stranger stepped back, satisfied. "Good, because the city will try to trap you again. It always does. Collapse breeds loops like fire breeds smoke." A surge of low-frequency static buzzed through the walls. The stranger turned sharply toward the corridor. "They found us," he whispered. "Who?" Aren asked. But the stranger didn't answer. His circuitry brightened violently, too bright, too fast, as if reacting to a threat Aren couldn't yet see. He grabbed Aren by the shoulders. "Listen, whatever happens next, do not fall back into the loop, not even for a second. They hunt patterns, they devour predictability." Aren felt the chamber tremble. "Who hunts?" he demanded. The stranger's voice dropped to a trembling whisper. "The signal eaters." And then, behind them, a sound like tearing metal and distant screaming echoed through the dark.
Chapter 6.
Chapter 6. Build a future-driven identity engine. The sound behind them grew sharper, metal scraping against metal, like claws dragging across hollow steel. Aren turned toward the noise, but the stranger's grip tightened on his arm. "Don't look," the stranger whispered. "Signal eaters track attention. If you focus on them, they consume the pattern of your thoughts." Aren forced his gaze forward, pulse hammering in his ears. He could feel the presence behind them, a distortion in the air, like a gravitational field warping the atmosphere. The stranger nudged him toward the exit corridor. "Move, we don't have much time." As they ran, Aren felt the resonance of the anchoring device still humming within him, stabilizing his perception. But even that wasn't enough to silence the whispering distortions slithering along the walls. "You cannot escape the signal. You cannot escape the signal." The phrase repeated, soft, rhythmic, almost coaxing. Aren clenched his jaw. "Ignore it," he muttered to himself. "Ignore the loop." "You must build forward," the stranger said as they emerged into a wider passage. "The only defense against decay is a mind shaped by the future, not the past." That phrase lodged itself in Aren's thoughts. A mind shaped by the future. The corridor widened, revealing a long cylindrical chamber illuminated by bioluminescent tapestries woven into the walls, moving patterns, shifting in slow spirals. Aren realized they weren't decorative. They were instructional. The stranger gestured toward them. "This is the first identity engine. The Utopians built it during the final years before collapse, a system meant to force the mind to evolve forward." Aren stared as the patterns pulsed, each spiral shifting into fractal shapes that seemed to anticipate his movements or his thoughts. "It trains identity," Aren whispered. "It trains orientation," the stranger corrected. "Most people live backwards. They define themselves by memory, by history, by what they were taught. But in collapse, the past becomes poison. The future must be the blueprint." A cold breeze drifted through the corridor, carrying a faint vibration, like distant footsteps echoing through dimensions. The signal eaters were close. The stranger touched one of the glowing spirals on the wall. Immediately, it unfolded into a holographic swirl of deep blue light. Inside the swirl, Aren saw images. A sublight sleeper ship drifting between stars, passengers lying in transparent pods, minds wired to neural recalibrators, a chamber where consciousness was trained to think forward, not backward. The stranger's voice softened. These were the future first beings, passengers who slept through centuries, yet emerged with identities built for worlds that didn't exist yet. Aren watched a sleeper awaken in the projection, eyes opening as if seeing not the present, but possibilities. Entire timelines unfolded around the figure, their identity stretching forward like an arrow. The sleeper ships were our greatest experiment. We removed anchors to the past. We gave them no history, no inherited identity, only future orientation. Aren stepped closer, enraptured by the images. What does it do? It reassigns identity, not based on memory, not based on origin, based on trajectory. Aren swallowed. Trajectory. A future pulling identity forward. A phrase surfaced in Aren's mind, the mantra etched into utopian archives, repeated during every neural recalibration. Identity is chosen, not inherited. The spiral pulsed in confirmation. Aren felt old memories, the ones tied to patterns, fears, and learned helplessness, grow quieter. Not erased, reorganized, like files shuffled into deeper folders. His consciousness shifted forward, leaning into timelines he had not yet lived. He saw faint impressions of who he could be, stronger, sharper, unbound by collapse. The stranger watched him. "You feel it, don't you? The identity engine beginning to turn." A dull vibration traveled through the chamber. A low growl echoed. Aren snapped his gaze toward the entrance. "They're coming." The stranger nodded. "Then listen to me carefully. The only minds signal eaters cannot consume are those in motion, those defined by the future, not trapped by the past." Aren felt the spiral pulling at him, asking him to choose the forward shape of himself. "Identity is chosen," he whispered. "Not inherited," the stranger finished. A tremor shuddered across the chamber floor. Dust fell from the ceiling. The bioluminescent spirals flickered. Then, from the corridor behind them, a distorted silhouette slid into view, its shape bending like a glitch in reality. A signal eater. The stranger stepped in front of Aren, circuitry brightening. Choose quickly, he warned. The future is the only shield you have. The creature leaned forward, and the chamber lights exploded into pure white.
Chapter 7.
Chapter 7. Strengthen the Mind Through Scarcity Simulation. The blinding flash dissolved as quickly as it came. When Aren's vision steadied, the signal eater was gone, either repelled by the identity engine's flare or pulled back into whatever dimension fed its hunger. The stranger, however, stood weakened, his circuitry flickering like a dying constellation across his metallic frame. "Come," the stranger said softly. "You've shaped your identity forward. Now you must forge its strength." Aren followed him into an adjacent chamber, small, circular, and dimly lit by a single hovering sphere of amber light. The walls were carved with symbols unlike any Aren had seen before. Jagged lines, broken loops, and downward arcs that resembled falling structures. These were not utopian markings, these were warnings. The stranger pressed his hand to the sphere. The chamber's shutters sealed with a hiss, plunging them into a heavy quiet. "This," the stranger murmured, "is a scarcity pod. The early colonies built them after their worlds died. They learned something critical. Abundance makes the mind complacent. Only scarcity teaches adaptation. Only scarcity builds intelligence." Aren felt the temperature drop. His breath fogged in the air. The mantra drifted through his mind like a cold wind. Scarcity is not punishment. Scarcity is training. The stranger gestured for him to stand in the center. These pods were modeled after the survival domes built on dead planets, places where air, light, space, and time were rationed to sharpen cognition. Controlled deprivation, measured limits, no emotional overload, only adaptation. A hum vibrated beneath the floor. The chamber darkened. Aren's heartbeat quickened. "What do I have to do?" "Endure. Learn. Adjust." He stepped back. This simulation occurs in 3 phases. Each one recalibrates a different part of the mind. Phase 1. Limited light. The sphere flickered, dimmed, then extinguished entirely. Complete darkness washed over Aren. He inhaled sharply. He could see nothing, not even the outline of his own fingertips. His mind reached for familiar patterns, tried to reconstruct the environment from memory. But the darkness pressed back, cold, heavy, shapeless. "There is no map," the stranger's voice echoed. "Scarcity takes away the illusion of knowing. Do not seek clarity, seek adjustment." Aren steadied his breath. He let his other senses rise: temperature, air currents, the subtle vibration beneath his feet. Slowly, he began to perceive the chamber through sensation rather than sight. A whisper rose in his mind. A mantra. Scarcity is not punishment. Scarcity is training. The sphere flickered back online, but only partially. A faint, ember-like glow illuminated the room. Aren had passed the first phase. Phase 2. Restricted movement. The floor shifted. Panels rose around him, tightening the space into a narrow corridor barely wider than his shoulders. Confined, compressed, his breath caught. In the dead worlds, the domes shrank as resources dwindled. The mind learned to move with intention. Constrained space forces creative orientation. Aren pressed his palms against the walls. The metal was cold, unforgiving. He turned sideways, inching through. His thoughts threatened to fracture. Claustrophobia clawed at his ribs. But he repeated the directive. Scarcity is not punishment. Scarcity is training. He adapted. He slowed. He navigated the narrow passage with calm focus. And when he reached the far end, the panels retracted. Phase 3. Compressed time. An alarm chimed once, sharp and metallic. Then the chamber's clock accelerated. Seconds felt like minutes. Minutes felt like moments. Time stuttered, leapt, contracted. Aren staggered as his internal sense of duration warped. He walked forward and felt his steps occur out of order. One fast, one slow, one delayed by half a second. His perception threatened to unravel. The stranger spoke through the distortion. Collapse happens fast, too fast for the untrained mind. This phase forces you to think in uneven temporal rhythms, to adjust as time breaks around you. Aren squeezed his eyes shut. He focused on breath, rhythmic, steady, anchored. He remembered the perception anchor from Chapter 4. He used it. The spirals returned in his mind. The hum of the city pulsed beneath his memory. His identity engine pulled him forward, not backward. He whispered again, "Scarcity is not punishment. Scarcity is training." And slowly, time settled. The distortion faded. The chamber lights returned to normal brightness. The floor stopped trembling. The sphere dimmed to a soft glow. The stranger watched him with something like pride. "You adapted faster than I expected." Aren exhaled, shaking, sweating, but stable. "What happens now?" He looked toward the sealed door. "They felt your adaptation, the signal eaters. Scarcity leaves a signature. They can sense minds that grow stronger." Aren's stomach dropped. "So they're coming?" "They're already here." And as the chamber doors split open with a piercing metallic shriek, Aren saw multiple silhouettes waiting in the dark hall. Not one signal eater, several.
Chapter 8.
Chapter 8. Train temporal awareness for a collapsing timeline. The silhouettes that waited in the hall did not move at first. They hovered like distortions, blurring, bending, flickering as though struggling to maintain shape in the present moment. Aren felt time ripple around them, the air stretching and contracting with each pulse of their presence. The stranger placed an arm across Aren's chest, holding him back. "These aren't normal signal eaters. These are the temporal hunters. They feed on fractured time." Aren swallowed hard. "Why are they here?" "Because your mind changed," the stranger said. "You're beginning to think across multiple timelines at once. They smell that." As if sensing acknowledgement, the hunters glided forward. The lights warped around their figures in slow-motion waves. The hallway aged in small increments wherever their shadow touched. Metal rusting, lights dimming, air thickening with temporal decay. Aren felt his heartbeat skip. Then another beat overlapped it. 2 rhythms, 2 timelines. His perception fractured, then fused again. The stranger pulled him backward, deeper into the scarcity chamber. "You must learn temporal flexibility now, or they will erase you from this moment entirely." Aren's breath quickened. "How? I can barely stay in one timeline." "You won't stay in just one. That is the error of collapsed civilizations. They resisted time's instability instead of learning to bend with it." He pressed his palm against the wall. A hidden panel slid open, revealing a narrow passage leading downward. Strange echoes drifted from within, multiple versions of a single sound layered on top of one another. Aren stepped inside. The air shifted instantly, vibrating with a strange dual-toned resonance. "This," the stranger said, "is a chronolab tunnel. The Utopians used them to test micro-time distortions, not to remove them, to train with them. They believed a mind that could think across past failures, present danger, and future consequences simultaneously could predict collapse before it arrived." The tunnel lights flickered in irregular rhythms, fast, then slow, bright, then dim, forward, then backward. Time here wasn't broken. It was elastic. A whisper drifted along the tunnel walls, echoing the phrase Aren had read in the archives. "A rigid mind breaks, A flexible mind predicts. The stranger raised 2 fingers. Your training begins in 3 temporal phases. Move with each. Don't resist. Aren nodded, though his pulse trembled. Phase 1. Retrospective threading. The air thickened. The lights dimmed to a deep amber glow. Aren felt it tug backward, like a memory trying to pull him inside itself. Suddenly he was watching himself earlier in the day, walking through Sector 4 before entering the archive chamber. He saw the flickering holographic banner. He saw the old code looping endlessly. He felt his past self hesitate. The stranger's voice echoed. Observe. Do not fall into the memory. Thread it. Use it. Aren breathed through the pole. He let the memory move around him without letting it consume him. Then, as quickly as it came, the past loosened its grip. The tunnel lights brightened. Aren exhaled. 1 thread anchored. Phase 2. Present multi-focus. The corridor split into 3 slightly different present moments layered on top of one another. One version of the stranger stood inches to Aren's left. Another stood directly behind him. The third leaned against the tunnel wall. The stranger's true voice echoed in a steady rhythm. Collapse forces multiple realities to coexist for seconds at a time. A flexible mind sees all 3. A rigid mind sees none. Aren tried to focus on one figure, but his vision blurred. He tried to focus on all 3, but the overload burned behind his eyes. His breath hitched. His heart fluttered between rhythms again. He repeated the mantra out loud. A rigid mind breaks, a flexible mind predicts. Slowly, painfully, his mind expanded, accepting the overlapping layers. Every version of the stranger lined up. Every present merged. Aren gasped as the tunnel stabilized. The stranger nodded. Good. 1 more. Phase 3. Future pulse alignment. The tunnel surged with white light. Aren staggered as visions flashed. Aren running through collapsing corridors. Aren standing in the ruins of New Helios. Aren facing a towering machine with spiraling sigils. Aren alone. Aren victorious. Aren erased from reality entirely. The stranger gripped his shoulders. Do not fear the visions. They are only possible futures. Choose none. Predict all. Aren's breath trembled. The futures overlapped, folding into one another like pages in a book. He closed his eyes, and instead of resisting, he allowed the timelines to pulse through him like waves. Light expanded. Time lengthened. The visions settled into coherence. Aren felt his mind shift, flex, adapt. When he opened his eyes, the tunnel was calm again. And the stranger was staring at him, not with fear, but with recognition. You've done it, he whispered. You've achieved temporal awareness. A low roar shook the tunnel. Aren turned. The signal leaders had found the chronolab entrance. And this time, they were not alone. Behind them, a massive shadow moved. One far older, far larger, and far more hungry.
Chapter 9.
Chapter 9. Construct emotional armor from cognitive steel. The roar that shook the chronolab tunnel was not like the shrill screech of the signal eaters. This sound was heavier, deeper, like the grinding of tectonic plates beneath metallic bones. The stranger froze, circuitry dimming in apprehension. Aren felt the vibration ripple through his chest, a low-frequency tremor that seemed to bypass the air entirely and travel straight into the nervous system. That, the stranger whispered, that's not a hunter. That's something older. Aren's breath caught. His thoughts scattered. The tunnel's lights dimmed, flickered, then steadied, but the atmosphere had shifted.
The air felt charged with fear, as if the structure itself remembered the creature approaching. The stranger put a hand on Aren's shoulder. "Listen to me carefully. Your perception is trained. Your identity engine is forward-facing. But none of that matters if your emotions break." Aren stiffened, unsure. "Break?" "Yes," the stranger said. "Fear collapses timelines. Panic dissolves identity. In dystopian environments, emotion is not an accessory. It's a weapon or a weakness." The roar sounded again, closer. Dust fell from the ceiling. Aren felt his heart slam against his ribs. The stranger turned him to face a dark alcove carved into the tunnel wall. Inside it, Aren saw a spherical device floating above a metallic pedestal, the surface covered in shimmering plates that rose and fell like breathing metal. "This," the stranger said, "is where survivors built emotional durability. They called it the Forge. Every colony on the edge of collapse had one, but the Utopians refined it into something more." He touched the sphere gently. "They called it emotional armor." The device hummed in response, casting faint pulses of blue light that washed over Aren's skin like cool water. Something inside him steadied. A whisper echoed in the chamber, drawn from archival recordings. "Emotions serve survival, not the other way around." Aren repeated the mantra silently. The stranger gestured toward the forge. "Step inside. It reads your fear impulses and turns them into data, structured, analyzable, no longer overwhelming." Aren's pulse spiked. The roar behind them grew louder. Something massive scraped against the walls of the tunnel. He stepped into the alcove. Instantly, the forge activated. A field of shimmering energy unfolded around him, enclosing him in a cocoon of gentle static. His breath hitched as dozens of emotional signals rose to the surface: fear, anticipation, dread, each appearing as flickers of holographic light around him. "It's reading me," Aren whispered. The stranger nodded. "Every fear impulse you have produces a signature. Emotional armor converts those signatures into structure. It turns panic into architecture. It makes emotion serve survival." Aren watched the flicker swirl. They pulsed irregularly, some bright, some dim, then slowly began forming geometric shapes. Triangles of fear, spirals of uncertainty, lines of residual grief. The structures hovered in the air like constellations. The stranger's voice softened. "Emotions do not disappear. They reorganize. They become steel." Aren felt something shift inside him. A warmth, a stabilization, as if the sensations that once threatened to overwhelm him were now aligning into straight lines and clear patterns. "Keep breathing," the stranger said. "The forge will synchronize with your rhythm." Outside the alcove, the tunnel shook violently. The roar reverberated so strongly the air quivered. Aren tensed as fear surged up again, bright and sharp. But the forge responded instantly. The flare of fear became a glowing lattice, a structure, a shield. Aren exhaled, stunned. "It's absorbing it." "No," the stranger corrected. "It's training it." A deeper vibration tremored through the floor. A shadow eclipsed the tunnel lights outside. The stranger stepped backwards, preparing. "We trained for this on the surviving colonies. When the environment collapses, emotion collapses with it. But those who forged emotional armor survived." A ripple of memory flowed through Aren's mind. Images from colony archives. A planet under perpetual dusk. Citizens wearing neural bands glowing with emotional circuits. A woman standing in the ruins, eyes calm despite a storm of debris around her, emotional armor shimmering like light beneath her skin. The mantra echoed again. Emotion serves survival, not the other way around. Aren repeated it aloud this time. His voice was steady. The lattice surrounding him pulsed, brighter now, thicker, wrapping him in a field of internal strength he had never felt before. Another roar, this one so close it rattled his teeth. A vast shadow darkened the entrance of the chamber. "Aren," the stranger hissed, "it's here." The forge flickered, sensing the threat. A spike of fear burst inside Aren, but the forge caught it, compressed it, hardened it, and sent the converted structure coursing through him like reinforcements. Aren stepped out of the alcove. "What now?" he asked, voice low. The stranger stared at him, at the lattice of emotional armor glinting faintly across his aura. "Now," the stranger said, "you face it without breaking." The creature stepped into view, towering, impossible, a walking fracture in time itself.
Chapter 10.
Chapter 10. Become the architect of the new Earth. The creature that stepped into the chamber was not simply alive, it was happening. Its body shifted in glitching layers, as though the timeline it belonged to could not fully hold it together. Segments of its form blurred, duplicated, then remerged. Its presence distorted the air, bending temperature, warping sound, and pulling faint echoes from past and future into the present moment. Aren felt his breath catch, but the emotional armor pulsed around him, steady, structured, converting fear into clarity. The stranger stood beside him, weakened but resolute. "You've learned survival. Now comes creation." Aren stared at him, confused. "Creation? While that is coming toward us?" "Yes," the stranger whispered, "because at the end of collapse, survival is no longer enough." The creature let out a low, vibrating roar. The chamber shook violently. Fragments of the ceiling rained down in metallic bursts. Aren braced himself. "What do we do?" The stranger's circuitry glowed faintly, like dying embers fighting one last time to become flame. "You activate the final protocol, the one the Utopians never reached." He stepped closer. "You build." Aren blinked. "Build what?" "Build the future," the stranger said. "The world that comes after this moment." A deep hum rose in the chamber, the same hum Aren had first heard in the early chapters of his journey. Only now he recognized it for what it truly was, a blueprint signal, the resonance of a world waiting to be formed. The stranger spoke again, voice trembling. "Look at the creature, not as a threat, as a limitation, a boundary, a reminder that every collapse demands a designer." Aren felt something shift inside him, his identity engine turning, aligning not toward survival, but toward intention, shape, and creation. He felt the resilience algorithms rearranging. He felt temporal awareness bending possibilities. He felt emotional armor stabilizing his internal architecture. Every chapter of his transformation converged here. "Aren," the stranger whispered,
The Utopians failed because they waited for someone else to build the new world. But the frontier colonies learned the truth. He raised a trembling hand. A hologram burst from his palm. Images of distant worlds. A colony remade from toxic dunes where engineers used resilience algorithms to design cities that shifted with the storms. Another built on a frozen planet where settlers trained temporal awareness to align their routines to erratic daylight cycles. A third on a shattered moon where emotional armor was woven into leadership rituals so that communities would not collapse under the weight of fear. Each image glowed with the same message. Collapse is not the end. Collapse is the blueprint. Aren felt the truth anchor deep inside him. The stranger looked up, circuitry flickering like candlelight in a storm. You are no longer a survivor. You are the architect of the new earth. The creature lunged. Aren stepped forward, not backward. The emotional armor flared around him, forming geometric shields of refracted light. The creature's temporal distortions slammed into him, but instead of shattering, the armor absorbed the impact, converting it into structured energy. Aren's voice rose, not in fear, but in command. Survival is the beginning. Construction is the destiny. The creature roared again, but this time the chamber responded, not in collapse, but in resonance. Aren felt his perception synchronize with the hum of the infrastructure. For a moment, he stood not in ruin, but in framework, in blueprint, in possibility. The stranger spoke again, voice trembling. Reshape it. Aren didn't understand until he did. He reached out, letting his future-driven identity engine pull from multiple timelines. He let his emotional armor stabilize his will. He let his temporal awareness stretch across the creature's fractured existence. Then he began to rewrite the distortions around it. Not destroying, reshaping. The creature's glitching form flickered, slowed, reformed. Its temporal fractures sealed. Its roaring ceased. Aren realized something astonishing. The creature wasn't just a monster. It was a remnant, a living fragment of collapse, waiting to be restructured. Aren lowered his hand slowly. The creature bowed its head. The stranger exhaled, a sound like relief and resignation intertwined. You see now, he whispered. The new earth will not rise because collapse stops. It will rise because someone decides to build beyond the ruins. Aren stepped forward into the quiet. The chamber hummed with new stability. His armor dimmed to a soft, steady glow. The stranger's form flickered, fading. My function is complete. Wait, Aren said, reaching for him. What happens now? The stranger smiled, circuitry dissolving into dust. Now, you continue what the Utopians feared to begin. The stranger vanished. Aren stood alone in the chamber, no longer a survivor, no longer a victim of collapse, but an architect. He looked at the creature beside him, now still, awaiting purpose. He looked at the tunnels, the ruins, and the broken megastructure above. He whispered the final mantra. Survival is the beginning. Construction is the destiny. And with that, Aren took his first step into the world he would create. End of chapter.
The listener has now walked through the ruins of failed utopias and extracted the only thing that matters, the algorithms that rebuild the human mind from scratch. They have activated the Survival Cortex. They have deleted the outdated operating system. They have installed resilience code forged in collapse, hardened perception against future shock, and broken the loops that once controlled them. They have learned how to think beyond time, how to build emotional armor from cognitive steel, and how to rise as a future-driven architect in a world that no longer guarantees stability, safety, or clarity. Every lesson in this audiobook serves one purpose: to create a mind that cannot be erased by dystopia, a mind that cannot be weakened by chaos, a mind that stands unbroken when the systems fall. And now, the final directive arrives. They must choose: return to the mental patterns of the old world, or step forward into the upgraded identity they have constructed. The challenge is direct. The world will not wait. The future will not slow down. The collapse will not pause. Their only mission now is simple: apply the blueprint, rebuild the mind, become the architect. Start today. Start now.